This is StoryBeat, Storytellers on Storytelling. StoryBeat explores how artists and creators of all kinds craft their stories. So join us as we reveal how master storytellers develop and build brilliant stories that people the world over love and adore. Thanks for joining us on StoryBeat. I'm Steve Cuden, coming to you from the Center for Media Innovation on the campus of Point Park University in the heart of downtown Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My guest today, Javier Grajeda, may be familiar to you because he's a very talented actor who shows up regularly on TV and in films. Javier received both a BA and MFA in theater arts at the University of Southern California, where he studied under the tutelage of such luminaries as Mary Carver, Stephen Book, and the legendary Oscar-winning actor-producer John Houseman. Not long after leaving USC, Javier earned his SAG card while working on Francis Ford Coppola's One from the Heart. That afforded him the chance to work with such great actors as Raul Julia, Teri Garr, Frederic Forrest, Nastasia Kinski, Harry Dean Stanton, and Lanie Kazan. Among Javier's accomplishments, he performed in the national tour of the musical Lunch, as well as with the world-famous Long Beach Opera Company and the Bilingual Foundation of the Arts under the leadership of Carmen Zapata. Additionally, he honed his comedy chops in improv and sketch comedy at the Acme Theater in Hollywood, where he also developed his writing skills. Javier has performed stand-up comedy at the world-famous Comedy Store and the Improv in Hollywood. You may have seen Javier on TV, guest starring on such popular TV shows as Star Trek Voyager, CSI Miami, NCIS, Grey's Anatomy, Halt and Catch Fire, Alias, and Mind Games. On the big screen, he's tackled roles in the Matthew McConaughey crime drama The Lincoln Lawyer and the dramatic adaptation of the Rum Diary starring Johnny Depp. But the project that has brought him the most recognition came when he landed the role of drug lord Juan Bolsa on Vince Gilligan's hit AMC show Breaking Bad, where he got to order the beheading of Danny Trejo. He's come full circle by reprising the very same role in Better Call Saul. It is truly a great treat for me to have Javier on StoryBeat because he and I happen to be old friends and colleagues, having attended USC at the same time more years ago than I'm sure either of us care to own up to. Javier, my friend, welcome to StoryBeat.
Thank you, Steve. I'm having fun so far listening to all the.
You're listening to the world about you. You're listening to all about you.
Yeah, I know. It's like music to an actor's ears, hearing about himself. But how are you, Steve?
I'm outstanding. So let's get into a little bit about the process of what you do as an actor and writer and performer. Where did you start all this? What was your earliest inspirations and influences? What was your first creative love?
Well, it started actually when I was in the fourth grade. I was always, making jokes and stuff when I was a kid. I remember that. You hear that a lot from other performers. They say, I remember I was a class clown. I was this and that. But I remember I used to like to tell jokes when I was a little kid. And so it kind of all started back then. In fourth grade, they were doing this little health play, and I was a passenger on the train to Egg Island, and
Egg Island.
Egg Island, yes. My very first line was, "Take me to Egg Island, if you will, because eggs will make you grow stronger still." And that was the beginning.
What a memory you have that you remember your very first line ever.
Well, I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, but yeah, I remember my first line. And so through elementary school, there was a musical influence with a bunch of friends. We had a little band, and then in high school, I did a musical. It was a Catholic boys' high school, and our senior project was Fiddler on the Roof. So you had a bunch of Latino kids, from the hood, doing Fiddler on the Roof. I played the role of Tevye, and
that's the lead, is it not?
That is the lead, and you know what? To this day, that is one of my favorite roles. Although being on a Vince Gilligan set is pretty good too. But and that's kind of started the ball rolling really when I made the decision to do it professionally. I went to USC after my senior year in high school. I went right into SC and got my BA and MFA in theater arts. So
you emphasizing acting, obviously.
Yes, absolutely.
So you've been acting since you were what, 7 or 8 years old?
Yeah. Professionally, maybe 35, 40 years. And I'm happy to say I haven't had a day job in like 35 years.
No, you're one of those rare birds who's managed to have a really good career, being an actor of doing all sorts of different things.
Yeah. It has been quite a ride.
Who would you say your acting heroes are? Who do you look up to and say, "Wow, I wish I could be more like that," or I'm inspired by someone? Who would that be?
Well, gosh, there's a few. When I was very, very much, especially in high school, the iconic Marlon Brando in The Godfather. I remember seeing that movie, and that's still to date one of my favorite movies. And just being blown away by his performance, and Al Pacino in Serpico, of all movies. Now I'm dating myself.
Awfully good movie. No, you're not. Al Pacino in Serpico is an awful good marker to head for.
Yeah, I remember wanting to just emulate him and be Al Pacino and I even I think we've all been through had our vices over the years, and in college, being in the department with everybody, we all used to smoke, and I switched brands of cigarettes because I thought, you know what, I bet that's what Al Pacino smokes. So I switched to Pall Mall unfiltered cigarettes.
Goodness.
And yes, I know.
I'm pleased to say not all of us smoked, Javier.
Well, the tough guys did.
Did you think that, and it's a legitimate question, did you think that smoking made you look a certain way that helped in terms of being an actor, that there's something cool about it?
You know what? No, not really. I started smoking because we were doing a play at SC, Detective Story, and I remember the director. He said, "Everybody smokes in the 40s. Everybody, if you don't know how to smoke, learn how to smoke." And and so I bought a pack of the lightest cigarettes I could find because I really didn't smoke, and I didn't want to fake it. I didn't want to just take a drag and just blow it out because it really looks fake. So I was already into the authenticity of the character at that, even at that age. So, I had to learn how to smoke for a play, and that's kind of how I just picked up the habit. But no, it wasn't, because I thought I looked cool. It just became a habit.
All right. So
and of course, everybody hung out in backstage too, and that's a whole nother world too. We used to smoke in class. I don't know if you remember that back then.
Well,
people would smoke in class.
Of course, because there were no laws against it.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So you've been at this for, as we've said, quite a few years. At what point in your training, or your doing it as a professional, at what point did you think to yourself, "Yeah, I'm pretty good at this, and I'm going to make a career out of this"? At what juncture did you think that to yourself?
Probably, after my undergrad years, because I was, I came off the high of, from high school of playing Tevye, and I got an award, the mayor's. There was a mayor's award, in L.A. for schools and stuff, and I got the best actor award. Boy, was I good, And then you get in. I got into school, and you realize that there's a lot more to acting than just watching the movie Fiddler on the Roof 10, 15 times and just try and beat Topol.
Okay, so that's a good place to ask. What is it about acting that there's more of that you needed to learn? What can our listeners learn from you in terms of what is it about acting, and what does it take? What kind of thinking does it take?
Well, I started learning that you have to put yourself, or you have to tell the story as part of another story. The character you're playing in whatever piece, whether it's a play, a movie, a television show, you have to see where you fit in the story. And I had it was kind of an awakening. I said, wow, I all I'm doing in this TV show is delivering a cup of coffee to the guy at the front desk. I can't break down into tears and do this dramatic performance. You know what I mean? So what did they say? What was that? The ouch has to fit the pinch or whatever.
I've never heard that phrase. That's interesting. The ouch has to fit the pinch. So in other words, you
Right.
can't overact it and you can't underact it. It has to fit exactly what's happening.
Right, and so it was. It was, and also developing a process of working, of rehearsing, of looking at the material and seeing, and this is all basic acting 101. But sometimes you have to go back to the basics. Where the character came from, what he's doing in the scene, and what happens afterwards. You're not going to see what happened before and after, but it's going to tell you intellectually, emotionally, how to play the scene, in the moment, to use another actory term.
Well, being in the moment is extremely important for actors, is it not?
It is, and the thing is, it's not. For me, I have to take material and really, analyze it, and when that moment comes, even though you've rehearsed, you can even rehearse for myself. I rehearse the emotional arc of the character. Some actors work very, instinctively, and they just things happen. They let things happen. They let things. I need to know exactly where it's going, but then you let it go. Once you, it's like an athlete. Once the body has learned how to do the jump or the plie or the throw the ball, throw the pass, then the body just takes over, and so you wind up being in the moment. And I'm just speaking for myself personally, even though I really had to work to make it look like I'm in the moment, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. You really have to make an effort to make it look natural and like it's happening right this moment. I assume that the ideal for you is those moments, and as I understand from talking to lots of actors and listening to a lot of interviews with people, that actors really live for the moment where they feel like they really are in the moment, that they're not acting the moment, that they feel like they are in the moment. Had you have those moments?
Well, yeah, and for me it happens more. It would happen more when I was doing theater, because I love the rehearsal process, and so all the rehearsal, all the analysis, all that is put into the bucket, and then when the play opens, when you start performing, things start it's this phenomenon. I don't know how else to explain it, but it's in your body. It's in your soul, for lack of a better word, and things start to happen. Even though you're saying the same word, you're doing the same. It's always different, and there's always discovery, which is really exciting.
Well, I'm asking you to do something that I know is particularly difficult, and that is to explain this mysterious process that you go through, and that it's not easy to explain at all. In fact, in most cases, it's really not explicable. It's something that you just experience, and so I'm grateful to you for even trying to figure that out, because I don't think too many people are able to express exactly what happens to you. It is difficult. Tell us a little bit about your life as an actor in Hollywood. Tell us about your day. What do you typically experience? I know you have days where you're on auditions and you have days when you're not. How do you work your days?
And this is something I'm just going to throw out there for other actors who are maybe in the same at the same point in their careers, or who are more I don't work every day, as you said, and I like to stay in shape. So I get the newspaper, and I'll read out loud. That's the first thing I'll do in the morning. I'll have a cup of coffee or whatever, or tea, and get the cobwebs out of my head, and I will read out loud for about half an hour, 40 minutes. Because I also audition for voiceover, for a lot of voiceover stuff, which has been a big part of my days in the last four years. But it just it just kind of opens you up. It kind of warms you up, even just personally for the day. And I will usually have, if I don't have any auditions, I will go to the James Nasium. It's a joke I had.
The James Nasium.
To the James Nasium, yeah. It's fancier than the gymnasium.
I've got to get myself a membership.
Or I'll go to the gym and work out, and I'll usually have some voiceover auditions, which now with all the digital media stuff and computers and blah blah blah, I record 5 or 6 auditions from my home, and I send them in. I turn them into MP3 files. And I send it to my agent. I don't even have to leave the house.
These are all voiceover auditions.
These are all voiceover auditions. And then if I have an audition, then of course I will, go through this process that we sort of touched on a couple of minutes ago. I will look, and I usually have a day or two to prepare, so that's basically how the day goes. And I'll then I do, of course, all the normal stuff that I need to do as just a human being, and get to the bank, get the thing, go to the post office, pick up laundry or whatever, and but it's changed over the years, because now I have also the focus of the voice work, which also is very interesting, because you're doing a voice. The voice is like of a gnome. I did some gnome voices the other day, but they're really big, powerful gnomes. So, but you're telling the story of this gnome in this video game, right? So there's preparation. So there's all of those tools come in handy when just you don't have to memorize any lines or anything, because you have the script in front of you, but you have to give a performance that will potentially get you a job.
Well, of course.
So,
you can't go.
It's not a very exciting day.
You can't go. As you well know, I have a long experience in animation writing, and
right.
have spent some time in in the soundstage while they've been recording the voiceover work, and there's no way you can just walk in and wing it. You have to have spent some time preparing.
Yeah. Oh, of course. And but that can be. I mean, you prepare it, and then again, of course, you find periods during the recording where you also, even though it's a bit of a different technique, because you're in front of a microphone, you have a pop screen in front of you, but you're jumping around and stuff. I mean, I don't know if I'm sure some of your listeners have seen little clips of people recording voices for movies or for animation, and it's so much fun too, and it's in a lot of ways it's very freeing too, and you can see that they get into it with their bodies. Watching Robin Williams do Aladdin was fascinating, and so, but you have to if you've done the homework and you come in, you have to become that genie or that fish or that rock.
Would you say how much of your prep time would you say is focused on understanding the meaning of the lines versus trying to understand how to read the lines and put depth into them? What do you spend most of your time on when you're doing that?
Well, well, first, let's see if I can answer to try and make this as concise as possible, because sometimes I have a tendency to ramble, Steve.
Ramble on, my friend. Ramble on.
Okay. Well, you get the specs for whatever the thing is. A troll who lives in the center of the earth, and he's always on fire, so he's very angry all the time. So you get that, right? You get that, and you go, okay, so this is an angry person. And then they also give you sort of a prototype, they say, and his voice is like, a good model would be, I don't know, Bill Paxton, the smarminess of Bill Paxton mixed in with some of the gruffness of, whoever else. So you take all that, and then you look at the lines of what this troll is saying, and they give you a script. A lot of times they'll just give you the separate lines, or you'll get pages of a screenplay or of a teleplay, and it's just like going in and auditioning for the role live. You see where the character is in the story, why he's angry at this point, or why he breaks down and starts sobbing, and or what his intention is to destroy this town or whatever it is. So so you take it a step at a time. You start with the words. You start with a description of the character, and then it's a lot easier voiceover-wise, because you can do a lot of takes. You can play around with it. You can listen back to it, and then you send them what you think are your best couple of takes or your best take. But the process is pretty much the same, I think.
So it doesn't matter what the parts are. You're going to go at your preparation similarly in each case. They'll differ.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
You've crystallized my thoughts perfectly.
Okay. Well, okay. So do you approach when you're working in a feature versus television versus the theater versus voiceover work, is your approach the same for all four?
Yeah, it is. Because people will ask actors that all the time, and I always say, well, you know what? The process is the same, pretty much with anything with any character you're playing, within any medium, but the technique is different.
What does that mean? Give us an idea what that means. Your technique is different.
Why did you ask me that?
Because that's what I'm trying to do, is to trouble you all day long.
Oh, gosh. All right. You're going to make me a better actor, Steve.
I'll try.
Well, a lot of this stuff is something that, over the years of having been doing it over and over that we really stop thinking about.
Sure.
And it's good. And it's good to think about it. But technique, for example, stage, right? You do your homework. You know what the character is doing. You know, but you have to be very. You have to reach the back row, to use an old cliche. So you have to be. It's heightened. It's a heightened reality, where you prepare your character. You do something on film. It's so much smaller and more naturalistic, but the same things are still going on emotionally or comedically or whatever with the character. So I guess that's the best way to explain it. The physical technique it's I guess physically it's a different physicality for each different medium that you're performing in.
So it's the part of it has to do with the physical intensity of what you're doing at the same time. It could be as intense from one role to the next, depending on whether it's stage or film. But there's a level of volume, a level of intensity, a level of physical movement that is larger or smaller, for lack of a better word, in
right.
Depending upon which of the mediums you're working in.
Exactly. I mean, see, you've made me think here, and so the technical part of it is very different.
Okay.
But the preparation is exactly the same.
The textual preparation, the acting preparation, the character preparation.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So when you've been working on, let's talk about two different kinds of things. When you're working on comedy versus drama, now when you're working on scripted comedy or drama, your approach to the character is going to be the same approach, though the outcome of what you're doing should have a different effect on the audience. True?
Well, hopefully, if the writing is good and it's funny, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And how is that different from improv?
Well, improv, of course, is unscripted, but for the layman, or for people that have, or even for actors who have never done improv or have tried improv, it's not just getting up there and just talking off the top of your head. For a form of performance that looks so improvised, off the cuff, it is probably the most structured form of performing that you'll find. I mean, there are so many rules that you have to adhere to. So
give us an idea or two of what you mean by rules.
Well, the first rule that you learn is don't ever deny or say no.
Always say yes. Yes plus, right?
Oh, yes, always say yes, because you have to further the scene. If you come into a scene and you say, I don't know, you get a suggestion from the audience that you're waiting for a train, and the other character walks in and says, "Well, God, this is weird. We're on Mars," and you're going, "Well, no, we just established that we're at a train station, in New York City," that kind of thing. It's where you can't just start, going off half-cocked, willy-nilly, or whatever other. You have to adhere to the rules of improv. So you have to build on being at the train station and what the relationship is, where you're going, and then of course, it should be funny. So I haven't worked so hard. I haven't worked more than I have, as I have in an improv class, because there's so much structure to it. Also, you have to. There's what they call 3-line labeling, where if two characters are in a scene, within 3 lines, you have to know who they are, where they are, and what they're doing. You know what I mean? So
it requires
it's almost easier having a script.
Yeah, it requires you to be very attentive. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, listening is the major one of the major rules also of because you can also bring that back later on into the scene. If something has been established, you lock that away, in your mental computer, and you can actually use that as the punchline at the end of for the blackout, which you know what the blackout is.
Yes.
When you finally you've gone full circle and you come to the crescendo of the scene, and someone comes up with a funny line that ends the scene.
I imagine there's nothing more about being in the moment than doing improv, because it is literally the moment. There is nothing that you're anticipating.
Exactly, and when everybody is on, and I hate the expression, but when everybody is on the same page, and there's no page really because it's unscripted, but it's amazing to see.
You're in a zone.
Like
you get in a flow together. Yeah.
It's like it's like jazz musicians jamming. It's an amazing thing to watch, and it's one of the most satisfying forms of performing when everybody's firing on all cylinders, and and of course you forget it. The next day you're on to something else, or you're on to the next scene.
Sure.
I've been in some classes where the people have been doing it for years. The people from Dudley Riggs in Minnesota, I think, they had a group out here, and they were just an amazing. I mean, they knew each other for years and years, so they were just people would set each other up. They would come in. They had the characters would just all and very memorable characters. And I would talk to a friend of mine, Michael McManus, who used to be part of this group, and I say, remember that scene where you came in and the ceiling fell down and you saved everybody's life? And he's going, no, once it's gone, it's gone. I mean, we're on to the next scene. But that's how memorable when things work can be in improv.
If I said to you, for the rest of your career, however long that is, may it be 1,000 years, but for however long your career is left, you are only able to do one of these types of things: comedy, drama, TV, film, and so on. What would you choose? What would be your greatest joy?
Comedy.
Comedy.
Comedy. You mentioned stand-up from the bio when you were reading the bio at the top of the interview, and I did it for about 5 years because I was always afraid of it. And people for years, even in school, when we were in school together, people say, "Yeah, you need to do stand-up comedy, man. You're really funny." Ironically, everything I've done on TV and film has all been dramatic. But so I was in a workshop. I was in a sketch group, and some of the teachers that also taught the comedy writing there were stand-up comics, and one of the teachers also taught a stand-up workshop. And being familiar and knowing this teacher, because she was also a fellow actor in the sketch company, I said, well, I felt comfortable because I knew her, so I jumped in. I took this class, and what an eye-opener that was. It's the most fun, most satisfaction I've ever gotten from any type of performing. I wish I had started doing stand-up comedy in high school.
That's really hard work. That's super hard work.
Well, and what's hard is the writing, and
Definitely.
It actually gave me a discipline, and also it gave me an appreciation for the writing, because I remember being sort of a cocky, young actor, and saying, what's all this about the writing? We're writing, blah, blah, blah. They wouldn't be writing it if we weren't going to say it. That's why they're writing it, so they could hear it up on it. But you know what? It's about the writing.
It is always about the writing. Without the writing, well, you can do improv forever, but it's very hard to generate storytelling without somebody writing it and figuring it out.
Oh, and you know what? That changed really fast. Once I started writing, and over the course of one's career or one's performance life, you realize that it's about the story and the words.
The actor, the director, must adhere to some kind of discipline, and the discipline usually is about whatever the story is, and that comes from whoever put it together, whether it's the actor, the writer, the director, whoever. Usually it's a writer. And without those three, all three are pulling for the same thing. The writer's creating a world in which the the actor and the director are all pulling toward creating that same world. So it's all three sides of one coin.
Exactly.
So let me ask a couple questions about Juan Bolsa, which I find fascinating. That part is, you speak it mainly in Spanish. There's almost no English, correct?
Right. There was a scene in Breaking Bad where I did speak English with Gus, and that was the scene where I was killed. But yeah, it's all mostly in Spanish, and Spanish was my first language. In case you,
I do know you're a fluently bilingual person, which is always amazing to me.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. I used to do a routine about being bilingual, and I used to do a bit in my stand-up act about being bilingual. So Juan Bolsa speaks Spanish.
Is it written in Spanish?
You know what? No, it's written in English, and then it's translated. When I auditioned for the role, I think they were, I don't know what was going on, but it was, they needed to get the part cast. The role needed to be cast very, within the next couple of days, because then they were flying people out to Albuquerque to shoot this thing. So I went in, and there was all these other guys that I've seen at auditions for years. Pepe Serna was there, and a bunch of other guys that that we hit the audition circuit that I see all the time. And I thought, wow, okay, well. So the casting director comes out, hands me like 4 pages of dialogue, all in English, and she says, "Could you do these in Spanish?"
So he wanted you to be a translator as well as an actor, is that right?
Yeah, and I was like, really? She goes, I know, I'm so sorry. They just wrote it. This role is, it's a new role, and we got to. She says, just do your best, and just try and get the essence of the character. He's this and this and this, and he's very, okay. And usually, I would have handed them very politely. I would have handed them. This was Breaking Bad, right? So this was the show, and
the show.
Had this. Yes, the show had
the
this
show
been,
of shows.
Right. Had this been a different situation, I would have politely handed back the pages to the casting director and said, get them to me when you have them translated.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. I don't well, because you also have to capture what the writer is trying to convey in the translation, and that's not easy to do off the cuff. But anyway,
no, it's not easy at all. In fact, it's the difference between a translation and a transliteration are two different things. A really good translator captures that tone and essence and meaning and all the rest of it. A transliteration can be very clunky.
Right, and so, but I went in. I was a trooper, and I'm glad I was, because I got the role.
Sure.
And so that was, and.
You showed them something that I think is very important for people starting out in the business to understand. You were willing to flex with the moment, and you were willing to do what needed to be done, as opposed to complaining that you weren't capable. You just made it happen.
Right. And had this been 20 years ago, I don't know. I don't know if it would have happened.
Would it have flipped you out 20 years ago? Would it have made you crazy?
It would have made me crazy because also, you know what, my Spanish has gotten, my Spanish, you know, even though I spoke Spanish as a kid, that was my first language. As I got into school and everything, you know, you start behaving, not behaving, but you start, you know, functioning in English. And, you know, my dad had a really thick accent, and, you know, my mom was born in Texas, so she spoke English. But my dad was bilingual too, but he was, you know, he had a very, very pronounced accent. And of course, you know, the second generation is, you know, you start learning stuff, and you know, so anyway, my Spanish got really bad, once I got into elementary school and through high school. It was because I just never practiced it. It was really poor. So, you know, and then as I started working more and realized that, you know, I really need to, you know, stay on top of this and you know, work at it, because I started doing a lot of commercials in Spanish, and I do that also with Spanish. I will go online or something and go to a Spanish website and just practice. So
do you think in Spanish when you're doing Juan Bolsa? Do you think in Spanish, or do you think in English and you're translating in your head?
You know, once I've learned it in Spanish, I don't even, you know, it just, you know, we're back to being in the moment. It's just being in the moment, and you know, it's there. You know, it's.
Well,
so
that's why you come off so.
No, I don't think in Spanish. I think as the character.
That's interesting. You think as the character. I mean, and it comes off. I just watched the most recent episode you did on Better Call Saul, and you come off as incredibly natural, as if you have never spoken a word of English in your whole life, and it's like that's completely who you are, and that I think that's a testament to exactly what you're talking about, that you are thinking as the character.
Yeah. Well, you know, Steve, it's, like you said, they say in that old joke, that's acting.
That's acting, yes.
That's acting.
Okay, so I'm curious, over the years, surely you've seen at least one or two or more things in your life that you would call odd or weird, or odd rehearsal preparation or whatever, in some strange stuff with actors. Share with us something that you think is a funny experience you've had with actors or acting over time. Something offbeat.
Something. This is off the top of my head. That I was working on a play, and this was actually when I was at the Bilingual Foundation of the Arts, and there was one actress who I guess studied method, and you know, it was after I give you the example, there's an addendum, but she was very, you know, organic and there's nothing wrong with being organic and trying to, you know, use sense memory, which is method, which is, you know, the method, right, where you actually become the character and experience everything that the character is experiencing, and you bring that on stage with you. And so she was supposed to get very upset and you know, break into tears. Well, she would sit in a corner, this actress, lovely person, by the way, but this is how this was her process. She sat in the corner the whole first act, because she didn't come out till the second act, and she would literally just start to shake and just work herself up into this emotional state of where, you know, you'd walk by and you know, you'd say, okay, you're all you and she was like, she would work herself up into this. I mean, it looked painful, and it was just, I just felt like, you know, it's like the classic line of, you know, Dustin Hoffman in Marathon Man. You go, why don't you just pretend, you know? to Dustin Hoffman, who stayed up all night because he had been running and this and that, and they finally capture him, and then he's captured by Laurence Olivier. And he hadn't taken a shower for like 3 days and stuff because the character had been and I guess he kept going up on his lines and stuff, and he was, because I'm trying to reach the emotional peak of the fear, and he says, "My good man, why don't you just act?"
Oh, well, that was the well-known major difference between Olivier and so many of his contemporaries is that he worked from the outside in. If you gave him the right shoes and the right clothes and you put the right hair on him, he got into the character, as opposed to working from the inside out, which is mostly the method and actor studio and so on.
Right.
And
just to touch on that, just because the idea popped in my head from what you just said, a lot of people or a lot of actors who are they want to be pure, they want this, if you have to work from the outside in, that's okay. There's been roles that I've and this is in theater or in scene work that we've been where you work out and play characters you probably normally wouldn't play in television. Where I've used the animal imagery, which is totally working from the outside in, where you become the animal that you think this character would be, and you pick up traits and characteristics and stuff, and that also feeds you, and you don't come on and start acting like a bear, but if this character, if the bear image where you actually do it as an exercise, you walk around like a bear, hopefully somebody has an oboe somewhere, and you have all the, you get the music that you always hear when you see those nature shows and a bear is walking around. There's always an oboe. I don't know why the bear has gotten the oboe.
Those are known as the Hollywood rules.
Right, but that image will actually feed you and help you, and eventually you come up with whatever like the troll or the thug. You're playing some big thug or something, or you're playing a really sloppy guy or a big clumsy something. That will actually, and I see no problem with working from the outside in. I studied with a teacher that I think Stephen Book.
Sure.
And that whole technique is an improvisational technique, but it's working from the outside in.
I think it's a testament to your professionalism that you are able to do both, and that you're not locked into one thing so badly that you are unable to do certain things. It enables you to be flexible.
Well, I mean, at a certain point, you have to, you have to take what you've learned, and to use another, cliche, and you look in the toolbox and you go, well, here, I'm going to need this tool for this, and I still use a lot of his rehearsal techniques, which are great when I get stuck on something.
What's the most challenging set experience you've ever had where you worked your way out of a problem? You've had no challenging set experiences?
Well, yeah, I did. You know what? There was a couple times. There was one time where I was playing a detective, and there was a lot of technical speak about forensics and this and that and stuff, and I was just having the hardest time remembering the sequence of what this and that, and it was, and that happens. That just happens sometimes, and it just. So I was, I got through it, and I don't remember if it was. I think I just looked at the script a whole bunch of times, just try to remember, okay, and just try to use like mnemonic device, some kind of mnemonic thing, so I would remember the sequence of of all this technical jargon that I had to tell this guy. But the on the downside, because I was thinking about that, and I think the acting suffered. I mean, it wasn't a major, it wasn't a career making or breaking role, in the sense that they're going, this guy sucks, this guy's terrible, and they cut it, they edited it and stuff, and and it was fine.
It's because
but
you were
just
concentrating
inside,
you were concentrating on the lines instead of being in that proverbial moment that we've talked about.
Instead of being in the moment, exactly, and that's another thing I can actually impart from experience is if you can develop the skill to memorize, and you can develop it. I've been I always poo-pooed memorizing something for an audition. I've had a modicum of success over the years, where I never memorized anything for an audition. And when I started taking Stephen Book's class, that was his whole thing. He says you get rid of the words. Just make sure the words are in your body and you're in your head, and you don't have to worry about them. And like you said, then you can be in the moment. And so another thing that I do too is I'll take little chunks of from screenplays that I have or old scripts, and just practice memorizing 3 or 4 lines just to get and get them out. Because from working, which I've discovered, if you're working on something, you can't, like something on Breaking Bad, like working, like Bryan Cranston on Breaking Bad. He's actually an old friend, and I said, how when you get the scripts? He goes, well, I get them overnight. I read them overnight stuff. He says, but you have to go. You cannot retain the whole script or the whole day of shooting. He says, there's no way you can do it. He says, and I watched all these actors on the set. They're during makeup, they have the script. On camera, boom. Everything is there. So you develop that too over time, and just from experience and over years, where I still have, because I'm not working all the time. I get nervous. I still get nervous when I especially if it's a lot of stuff that I have to, a lot of words. Not as much anymore, but it's still it can be daunting sometimes.
What do you do to overcome the nerves?
Well, I have to just try and breathe and relax and know that I got the job for a reason. I already have the job.
That's right.
I'm a professional, and they wouldn't have cast me if they didn't think I could do this. So that's sort of it's the whole mind game that I play with myself. Not so much anymore, and also. You also get a lot of shots at it, especially on a TV show or movie, because they do all the different angles, they do all the different cuts to all the close-ups and this and that. So you actually you get more, you ease into it, you get more comfortable as each take, as they do each take. But I don't suggest going there not knowing your words.
No. No, there are very few people that have perfect memories. I think it was Robert Mitchum who was notorious for having a photographic memory, and he'd literally look at a page and just go do it without having really spent any time. But that's pretty rare. Well, we've had a real treat here today. We've been chatting on StoryBeat with Javier Grajeda, one of the great working actors in Hollywood, and somebody you've probably recognized mainly from Breaking Bad, but many other shows. As we wrap up today's episode, Javier, I'm wondering if you have one solid piece of advice or a tip that you would lend to our listeners as to something that would help them with their career or the business of being an actor, something that would be of use?
My responsibility of these up and coming performers is in my hands. No, it's my responsibility.
It's all your fault.
I guess maybe a couple of things. Try and conquer the fear of trying something different in terms of acting or your preparation. When you're preparing for a role, don't be afraid to try things in rehearsal, even if it's for 2, 3, 4 lines and something. Like the rehearsal techniques I was talking about from Stephen Book. There's this one thing that I always use, which helps me when things start to feel stale, when you're reading the lines and you're going, uh-oh, I've fallen into a rut. There's a exercise where he would have you sing the lines as if you're doing, the Act 1 number, the number, at the end of Act 1 in a musical. And you know what? It's amazing what that does. And I can't explain what it does, but you do this, it gives you freedom. You sing the lines, I'm going to give you a cup of coffee. How can I help you, sir? Whatever it is. You just sing it out like you're doing a Broadway musical. And then forget about it, and then you just do it. And somehow that feeds you, and that gives you, and it's amazing because we would do it in class, and it just, the different sort of colors and like nuance that would happen with just doing that. That's something that I do when I'm stuck. And also, if you feel that you have a knack for writing, or if it interests you, by all means explore that, because in the end, I was talking about earlier about stand-up comedy, and a lot of stand-ups have now become writers on staff writers on TV shows and stuff like that. You can actually have control. That's one instance where you can have control to a certain extent, or more extent than an actor does on your work. If you learn how to write, maybe write for yourself, write your own material, write a screenplay, write a play, write a show or something. And so, like I said, it taught me more about acting too. Just knowing the sort of the journey of writing, of creating something and putting it on paper. Let's see if there's one more thing, and then I'll shut up.
All right.
And then let you go on with your day, Steve.
Thank you, Javier.
To prepare, be prepared. I know this is not this isn't a big, gem of wisdom, but be prepared. And you know what? And this is something I did for Juan Bolsa. I went in before we shot, and I did all the preparation. Where's the character? What's he doing? Why is he in it? All the acting stuff. But I rehearsed it 4 different ways. And here again, some actors will go, "No, you have to be in the moment. How can you do?" But I'm glad I did, because the director, we did like 5 or 6 takes, and each one of and what I mean by rehearsing it in different ways is rehearsing it, say, with maybe a different emotional color, then rehearsing it maybe where the anger came out of something else, no more frustration, because it was a confrontation scene that we shot, and or where it was more of a warning. So I did the preparation with giving the character 4 different goals in the scene, but you using the same dialogue. And each take we did, all those there, it all paid off, because he says, can you try one when you're a little more frustrated? Boom, I had it, right? Now try one where you're giving him a warning. It's more of a warning that So it was all there, and even if they hadn't, it still helped, enrich the performance.
Well, Javier,
So
this has been a great deal of fun for me, and I truly appreciate your time coming on the show today and giving us an insight into what it is that you do as an actor in the real world and professional world of Hollywood and movies and TV. And I thank you greatly.
Well, Steve, this was so much fun, and now, like I said, you've kind of made me get better at what I do, because you're always learning. Yeah, that's one thing. You keep learning. I real quick, you remember William Shallard, who played Patty Duke's father.
Yes.
on the Patty Duke show. I was in an acting class with him. He was 75 years old, and he was still taking acting classes. In Stephen Book's, he was in Stephen Book's class, and it was amazing. And he'd always been like a hero of mine. And, tell the people to look it up. I'm sure people, if you're under 25,
he did 10 bajillion things.
Yes, he did. And so, but keep staying classes, keep working out. That's the best advice, is stay in shape, in acting shape, or in vocal shape, or in writing shape. Keep always do a little something every day of what your focus is. Anyway.
Truly important and valuable advice indeed. Well, Javier, thank you very much for spending some time with us today, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Steve, this was such a treat. Thanks so much, man.
Take care.
All right, you too. Hey.
Today's StoryBeat tip. Here's a little Hollywood secret. All memorable stories are character studies. To be worthy of our time and attention, stories must be about the struggles of great actors in conflict. But when pitching a story to a producer, a studio or network executive, or to a director, star, agent, or manager, never use the words character study, unless the other person uses it first. It can be the kiss of death in a meeting. Why's that? The term character study tends to connote low-budget art house fare that may not attract much money at the box office. For every so-called small movie that makes it big, like Napoleon Dynamite or The Blair Witch Project, there are literally hundreds of duds that fare poorly at the box office. I do recommend that you write your screenplay as a deep study of character, a great character study. Whether it's intended as a major summer tentpole or as a micro-budgeted personal exploration, just avoid selling it that way. And so we've come to the end of another episode of StoryBeat. My thanks, as always, to the Center for Media Innovation on the campus of Point Park University, without whose support this program would not be possible. Until next time, I'm Steve Cuden, and may all your stories be unforgettable.